Hello again, 101. In chapter 14, what I'm going to do differently this time is I'm going to make a series of mini lecture videos on the chapter questions 1 through 4. The fifth question on how the Civil War affected the nation I will save for the Reconstruction chapter because I have a nice summary that I'm going to do for you that will explain that. But these first 4 short videos will explain these questions. See what you can do with that outline that is listed for this chapter. If you follow the key concepts, that will be able to be filled in very easily if you follow along closely. And this will help you, as hopefully these short videos will as well, to learn the material from this very, very important chapter. What were the advantages of North and South? Why was the North victorious in the Civil War, or the war between the states if you are a Southerner? Northerners call it the Civil War. They have an overwhelming advantage in the North in population. And once Grant becomes general after the election of 1864, Lincoln appoints this victorious Union general of the West, who succeeded in securing Vicksburg and had victories at a couple of forts that kept Kentucky in the Union. He will move him east and give him the overall command of the Union forces. Grant knew it was only a matter of time, if they bleed the South enough, that they were going to be victorious. They had 93% of the nation's manufactured goods. Only 7% of any manufacturing took place in the South. They produced most of the firearms, most of the railroad equipment. These are overwhelming northern advantages, population and manufacturing. The financial center of the country is in New York on Wall Street. The South is very land rich, but they're cash poor. It is an agrarian economy. They are always in debt. And where they were successful is that they had succeeded in getting most of the financial community up to 1860 to be in the background of this slave economy. One of the other moral arguments of how a house divided against itself cannot stand. It's either going to become all one thing or all the other. And geography is also a Southern advantage because most of the war is fought in the South. And they're playing on home turf. And they will get support from the local population. Union armies advancing into the South will meet great hostility. The Yankees are not wanted in the South. And this is going to be difficult for the North to come down and conquer this huge geographical area. So Winfield Scott, at the very, very beginning of the war, comes up with the Anaconda strategy, where they're going to blockade the Confederacy on the Atlantic and in the Gulf of Mexico, and through various military campaigns, as we'll see in upcoming videos, they will succeed in strangling the Confederacy and choking off supplies from without. The Militia Act, which will be passed in 1862, authorized African enlistment into the Union Army. This is a definite North advantage because they're not going to serve their slave masters. And this is a big dilemma for the South because 30% of the population, more than 30%, 3.5 million people out of that 9 million total were slaves. And they are fighting to keep them enslaved in the Deep South. This is a definite problem. And after the Emancipation Proclamation is issued by Lincoln, a master political stroke, this is going to damage the Southern economy because now slaves are escaping in droves to the North. And this eliminates any chance, the second big thing of the proclamation, of Europeans getting into an alliance with the Confederacy because they have already outlawed slavery decades before. The moral cause is now on the northern side. The war aims at the beginning to preserve the Union, to preserve this country that was founded in freedom and equality, now is expanded into a war to end slavery. Leadership, Lincoln is a much better president than Jefferson Davis. He is a pragmatist. He compromised numerous times. His main problem is finding a commanding general. He had many missteps, from Irwin McDowell to Ambrose Burnside, George McClellan. They were very ineffective commanders. But after the election of 1864, he gives overall command to U.S. Grant and William Tecumseh Sherman, and they laid waste to the South in the last 2 years of the war. Check the maps out that are in this chapter. They are posted on the site. Total war. The Civil War is sometimes thought of as the end of old-style warfare, fighting in trenches and using musketry and charges in order to take land, and the beginning of modern warfare with the introduction of ironclad vessels fighting on the seas, with overhead balloons spying and maybe dropping objects from them overhead, the use of the telegraph and reporting on what's going on at the front, and the idea of destroying civilian infrastructure, not just military soldiers and weaponry, but now they're going to destroy the infrastructure like railroad tracks as Sherman marched to the sea. And that's about it for this particular topic of advantages and disadvantages of North and South.